Phase 2 is going to bring a ton of changes to Season of Discovery. New talents, new abilities, and biggest of all, new runes. Over the course of Phase 1, we saw some class performance which I think it was quite easy to predict, such as hunters being amazing at kind of everything, despite the constant nerfs, or mages being insane on AoE. Then again, we did have some surprises too. Warriors and PvE turned out to already be doing great with the correct gear and raid comp, and rogues, despite missing what most would consider most of their toolkit, are already doing fantastic in PvP. But the new phase is sure to shake up the meta once again, so today I want to ask a new question. Which specs or class identities will be the most improved going from Phase 1 to Phase 2? Which specs get the most updates, and what should you be watching out for in Gnomeregan or when you're out PvPing in STV? Note that this is pre-release of Phase 2, so it will be going off some data-mined rune for certain classes, and we don't know 100% until the patch is out. Also keep in mind with Phase 2 coming up, it will be time to grind from 25 to 40, and those experience increments start to get pretty chunky in vanilla. Rested XP has been a guide that's been around for a long time now, and that's aimed at helping you level in the most efficient way possible. I've personally used it plenty of times and know that it works super well. And they're doing the rune guides for free as well, and they'll be updated as they're found in Phase 2 as well as future phases, which is just a bit easier to use than tabbing for a website and can help on those very difficult to find runes. And if you did want to have a look at what they have, there's a link below, you can check it out and support the channel directly. But with that said, let's begin. First up, I have the one button mage. Who needs all these runes and stuff? Let's go back to some good old-fashioned vanilla style gameplay. Let's make one spell so good it's all you ever want to press. Now, to be fair, mage DPS aren't even bad or anything in Phase 1, but I think they have a ton of power to be gained both through runes and talents, and should see a big jump in performance next phase. So let me introduce you to the Frostfire Bolt Mage, the classic edition of it. So Frostfire Bolt was originally brought in Wrath of the Lich King, and it deals both fire and frost damage and benefits from both schools of talent, so I'm assuming it will work the same way in Classic, and if it does, it's going to be really powerful. A build would look something like this, picking up Frostfire Bolt, Fingers of Frost, Icy Veins, and Brain Freeze as your main runes. As Frostfire Bolt is a rune, it's A, going to have a reasonable mana cost, and B, be scaled to level 40, so by default it should be doing great damage. On the talent side of things, you can get Ice Shards for 100% bonus critical damage, as well as Ignite for 40% bonus fire damage when you deal a crit. You can already see how these things synergize really well. Don't forget Cold Snap also resets the cooldown on Icy Veins as well, so you're going to have 40 seconds of 20% bonus spell haste. Fingers of Frost and Brain Freeze should both proc from Frostfire Bolt, and will make it into a bit of a casino spec where you need procs to happen to keep the damage rolling in. But then again, you're already playing a mage, they've always been RNG heavy with crit. It's also possible you'd want to swap out Fingers of Frost for Burnout and Brain Freeze for spell damage, so you can really focus into those huge crits that Frostfire Bolt is known for. And this would also free up 5 talent points in the Frost tree as well. And don't forget, next phase we have stuff like Curse of Elements, which further boosts your damage, and you may even be able to convince a priest to give you Power Infusion, which, remembering Classic, is not spell haste, it's 20% spell damage. All in all, I think a spec surrounding this spell has a lot of potential going for it. Well, at least on single target it does. Then again, mages do tend to do pretty well on AoE, even without having to change too many talents or runes around. The next spec to see big improvements for me has to be the melee hunter. So in Phase 1, hunters were given some runes to push the melee class fantasy, but it just wasn't enough to keep hunters wanting to be in melee all of the time. Next phase, we have a lot to get excited about for the melee hunter though. Here's probably the kind of build you'll be taking. Now you're probably thinking, why are you still taking Beast Mastery talents, not survival ones? Survival is typically the melee spec, right? And in short, I reckon you're still going to be playing the Beast Mastery rune, as your pet is just a bit too good at dealing damage. And with talents that vastly increase your pet's damage as well as, Bestial Wrath every 2 minutes, it's going to be hard to top that. And you are going to be playing a pet when you're meleeing too, so I think it kind of makes sense. As for runes, it'll be quite reminiscent of Phase 1 in that you'll play Heart of the Lion, Beast Mastery and Flanking Strike. New will be Melee Specialist. This is a huge gameplay changer rune. It puts Raptor Strike on a 3-second cooldown, makes it instant, not next melee, and it will have a 30% chance to not go on cooldown. This scales with Flanking Strike so well. Flanking Strike will allow you to stack up a 30% damage buff on Raptor Strike, and Raptor Strike will have a 20% chance to reset Flanking Strike's cooldown. And due to how much you're spamming between these two abilities, they should be constantly benefiting one another. Your boot rune is going to be where things differ a little bit. So there is a dual wield specialization rune. It increases damage from your offhand by 50%, causes Raptor Strike to hit with both weapons, and makes it do 30% more damage when you have 2 weapons of the same type equipped. In theory, I think this is going to math out better than two-handed because, well, it's just a ton of stats for free. Then again, you do need 2 of the same weapon, which may or may not be convenient with all the new loot in Gnomeregan. I can see this build running into mana issues too without external help, so it could be the case that you just run Invigoration on this rune and rock a 2-hander instead. Saying that, the male set from Noma has a very strong 3-set bonus, where it has a 5% chance to regenerate 100 mana on attacks, so maybe once you have this, you just go back to dual wielding. Melee Hunter should be pretty simple to play, yet fast-paced, with a lot of button mashing and procs constantly happening. I'd definitely keep an eye out for it, or give it a try yourself if you're a hunter main. Next is perhaps the biggest curveball we've seen from all the data mined information, and that is Shockadin. No, really, Shockadin in vanilla. Here's roughly what I think it will look like in terms of talents and runes. Of course, for a Shockadin to shock, you have to invest all 40 of your talent points into the Holy Tree and pick up the namesake of the spec. You do get a few talents that are going to boost your damage, such as Improved Seal of Righteousness, Holy Power, and Divine Favor, but for the most part, it's the runes where the potential of this spec lies. First up, you'll want Exorcist, of course, so you can spam Exorcism when it comes off cooldown, which, given some of the new runes, it will be doing a lot. Next up, we have the brand new infusion of Light. This increases the damage of Holy Shock by 20% and makes it so in Holy Shock crits, it both refunds its mana cost and resets the cooldown on Holy Shock and Exorcism. The Art of War rune makes melee crits reset the cooldown on Holy Shock and Exorcism, which is pretty crazy for a proc bonus on a single rune. In fact, this spec is basically going to run into serious mana issues with all these procs. Now, to be honest with how this currently looks, it's not going to be great or anything, but considering the spec identity currently, well, doesn't exist, I think that warrants calling it an improvement. And I also think this build is going to get way more support in the future if other data mined runes are anything to go by. But if you've ever wanted to live the Shockadin DPS dream, it might actually be happening in Season of Discovery, or at least you can see the start of it in Phase 2. The rogue tanking spec is one I've been pretty critical of so far this season. It has issues such as losing combo points when tabbing, as well as quite literally no AoE whatsoever, and those two were kind of deal breakers. In Phase 2, however, Tank Rogue has had pretty much all of their issues answered, whilst also now having access to the full combat talent tree, and this talent tree is pretty crazy. First up, there is a choice, however, of what ability to use as your main damage dealer. Not only has the energy cost of Mutilate been reduced from 60 to 40, meaning you can generate combo points in a super efficient way, but it's also confirmed that enemies in Gnomeregan will not have immunities to bleed or poison effects, meaning Saber Slash is still very much on the menu. We will see what feels better to play, but it should be something along the lines of Saber Slash is better single target threat, and Mutilate is better utility via combo point generation. You also got the redirect spellbook that will drop from dungeons. This allows you to store your combo points from your current target for up to 15 seconds, and then transfers them to a new target when you hit them with an ability. It appears to have a 1-minute cooldown and is just a great bit of quality of life. Then we get on to the runes. So it will still be your standard, just a flesh wound, blade dance combo. I think you're pretty much always running that, but we have a bunch that's new here, such as rolling with the punches, which gives 6% bonus health when you dodge or parry, stacking 5 times, and that's going to stack up so fast on a rogue for a total of 30% bonus max health, which is basically Warrior's Last Stand, but it's permanent, which sounds pretty good to me. Next is Shuriken Toss, and this is what really brings it all together for the rogue. So as per the data mine, it's a 60 energy 25 yard range ability that will hit up to 5 targets. So yes, rogues are still target capped for AoE, but this is an enormous improvement. First of all, this is great because, I mean, it's AoE. Rogue tanks needed something here, so there's that. It also generates a combo point and is usable from range. This means you can pull from range and you can get blade dance up when you're running in. This is going to stop that clunky gameplay interaction of running in and then trying to get blade dance up in your first few globals. But biggest of all might be the AoE potential. So for example, if we look how Warrior's Sweeping Strikes works with Cleave and Whirlwind, both of these cause bonus attacks to happen. So there is a chance that Shuriken Toss scales with Blade Flurry and basically makes it hit for a combined 10 targets every single time you cast it. The difference is Whirlwind and Cleave are melee attacks though, whereas Shuriken Toss is ranged. So I don't know if it's going to work or not, but if it does, it'll be really cool. Either way, Tank Rogue for me seems to be hugely improved in Phase 2, and I hope that Rogue enjoyers give it a go because I think it's going to be pretty solid now. Next I have the Elemental Shaman. So Elemental in Phase 1, not great. It had a poor rank of Lightning Bolt as its main damage spell, no chain lightning, and all its good talents were well out of reach. Every single one of these things changes in Phase 2. Here's our talents, and it's pretty standard elemental stuff. We're getting cast time reductions from Lightning Mastery, Elemental Fury for a bunch more crit damage, and just tons more. What's great about Elemental is that you learn a rank of Lightning Bolt at level 38, and rank 2 of Chain Lightning at 40. So it's pretty ideal in terms of spell efficiency compared to your combat level. And don't forget Blizzard buffed your chance to overload to a staggering 50% midway through Phase 1. I would not be surprised to see this get nerfed, by the way. And it even applies to Lava Burst, so you're going to be absolutely blasting damage. Also, as a side note, druids appear to be getting a rune called Dream State, which makes it so when they crit, the target takes 20% more nature damage for 12 seconds. And I think this rune is very real because, and this next bit is confirmed and in the game right now, Storm Strikers had its cooldown lowered to 6 seconds from 20, and has also been buffed to be a persistent nature damage debuff instead of just next to attacks. Your other runes will be Lava Burst, of course. You want that big guarantee crit every time it comes off of cooldown. You take Shamanistic Rage for mana regen because I don't know what else you'd take here for Elemental. As for your Waste rune, your choices are either Power Surge for more mana regen if you really need it. The 5% proc on the rune seems very undertuned in my opinion. I think this is just for the mana regen. Or you go Fire Nova, which lets you basically cast your Fire Nova spell from any existing fire totem. Also, don't forget about totemic projection now, so you could summon a magma totem next to you, project it forward onto a pack of enemies, and then cast Fire Nova on it, which sounds pretty good to me. Finally, your boots are pretty much a utility slot from what we know at the moment, so it would either be Decoy Totem for freedom, or Alpha to increase a tank's threat. So yeah, not much in terms of boosting your own damage, but I think you'll be okay. And those are the specs I picked out today. Of course, every class and spec is getting cool new stuff in Phase 2. I just expect some are going to benefit a little bit more than others. Let me know what you're looking forward to trying out in Phase 2, and whether there are any builds you think will see a big jump in power down below in the comments. And if you made it to the end, consider dropping a sub, as I'll be covering all season of Discovery content and news as we find it out right here. And finally, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.